Hello, my lovely friends, and welcome back to the channel. I'm sorry that I have been away. I apologize. I went on a Halloween junk journal making rampage, and I really just lost all sense of time. And I really didn't. I wasn't organized. Let's be honest, okay? I was really organized when it came to making the journals, but everything else literally just fell to the wayside. And I had made a few journals last year to put on my Etsy shop, and they sold out. So I was really like, ooh, that's encouraging. And so this year I've been sort of planning on doing this all along, but this was the first year that I really went all in, so to speak, and I did the 23 journals, and I'm still not done, if I'm honest. And I made a ridiculous amount of sets of postcards, and it's just been Halloween mayhem since the end of July. So I don't know what I was thinking, to be honest, but I was sort of thinking, well, this won't take very long, and I'll be able to make a video, and the next thing you know, it's been 3 weeks. Almost 4 now. And I haven't made a face-to-face video with you, so I apologize for that. Next year I will definitely get that sorted out so that, yeah. You guys are like, what happened? Where did she go? And then I just show up with all these junk journal flip-through videos. But the reason I needed to just sort of get all those listed was so that I had the links, so then I could put the links in my Etsy shop. Even though you can't actually click on a link in Etsy, you can copy and paste, of course, the link and then put it in another browser and open it up and watch. So, excuse me, it was just all about the timing. But anyways, here we are, back to normal. And, yeah. So, how are you? I hope everything's good with you guys. I apologize for those of you that are not Halloween or autumn fans. I am gearing up for some crazy stuff. For me, the first day of summer, the summer solstice, essentially marks the first day of spooky season for a couple of reasons. One, the days start to get shorter, and I know that a lot of people are like, stop it! But yeah, so I like the idea that we're the earth is turning back towards the cooler, spookier months. And for me, in order to get all this stuff done and ready and up and finished listing and all this stuff on my Etsy shop, I really do have to start all the art. In fact, next year I'm going to start in May. I'm going to start before June, the middle of June. I'm going to start in May. But anyways, that's that's not, that doesn't really concern you at this point. But today's video, I want to start talking about making our autumn and Halloween journals, for ourselves. So I thought it would be fun if I made my journals with you and showed you the process and my sort of convoluted thought process in how I do what I do and why I do it. Because this is my favorite time of the year, and I'm just dying to glue in and cut out and all the fun stuff and collage. I usually go through a few journals this time of the year, and I tend to do most of my journaling, if I'm honest, between now and say up to early spring. Once March, early April hits, I'm a little, and I find that I need a bit of a break from the intensity. I love journaling in the autumn and in the winter, but I do find that I don't journal quite as much in the winter or in the summer months as I do in the autumn and fall, for obvious reasons, right? So I sort of had this idea in my mind how I was going to present this to you, but as I was working on the videos today, I realized that this process might be a little bit more involved than I thought, and it's certainly going to be more than one video. But I thought that might be kind of fun if I did sort of like a, I don't know, a 3 or 4 part series of how I do this, and then maybe it will inspire you or give you some ideas, or just, I don't know, let's just be fun, right? So the one thing that I wanted to start off with, what today's video is going to be about, is basically painting over or gessoing over paper that you would like to use in a journal, but you're not really crazy about how it looks. And this is ridiculously simple. And I almost felt sort of silly making the video because I'm really just painting over scrapbook paper that I just didn't really like. But, you know, it's all part of the process. And some of these things that are ridiculously simple aren't always the things that we think of doing for whatever reason. It feels kind of weird when you're like, oh, you know, you're like, why didn't I think of that? Because it's so, but here we are. So I made today's video sort of backwards. So you'll have to forgive me if it sounds a little bit repetitive in some parts, or just sort of like, I found myself a little bit out of practice as well. So that was a little awkward. And, but what I did was I showed you some of the papers that I got from Cabella that I'm going to be working with. And I show you the process of me painting over papers that I didn't like, and also doing some Mod Podge with napkins. I got some really nice autumn napkins from the dollar store, and we glue some of those on scrapbook paper that I wasn't super keen on. So that's today's video. That's just sort of to get us started. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through tonight, and I'm going to pick up papers and sort of work in my mind how we're going to put these journals together. Because what I want to do is, where are we here? Oh, I better hurry it up because blah, blah, blah. Normally what I do is I have a signal, I always say it wrong, a single signature journal that I use mostly scrapbook paper in. And last year I didn't make an autumn one, I just did this big giant Halloween one. And I had a great time, obviously, right? But this year what I thought it would be fun to do is combine them, because I'd like to start journaling right away for autumn. Today is August the 29th, and September is right around the corner. But as we all know, when we work in a signature journal, hang on just a second, with a Costco run. So, anyhow. Signature journals. So we know, obviously, that the papers that we put in, again, this is going to sound incredibly obvious, but the papers that we put in the beginning are the papers that show up at the back, right? And so in my little brain here, I've been thinking about this, and I've been thinking about, I want to be able to work through this journal through September and October, but the autumn, because I would put just regular autumn stuff in the front, but I want Halloween in the back, so that when I get partway into it, then it's more Halloween. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm going to think about tonight is, oh, there's Lucy making a little bit of an entrance there. Hi, Luce. How's it going? Okay, having a little nap. I'm gonna have to be really organized as far as what papers go where, if I'm concerned, and I am, about timing. So I've been trying to figure out, I'm gonna cut the paper, but I have to figure out how I'm gonna glue some paper together, I'm gonna sew some paper together, and I'm gonna make it so that when I make the signature, everything falls in line in a sort of chronological order. And I thought what might be kind of fun in this journal, if I can work this out, I'm going to make it so that it starts off a little bit lighter in the front, and then as we go along, it gets a little bit darker and spookier. Okay, so that's sort of where I am. But if I just fold the papers in half, then we know what the signature looks like, because the front half shows up as the back half. So anyway, so I'm gonna hammer out those details tonight with the paper that I have. Because the other thing I thought about was, well, I could just do a September journal, and then we could do journal with me videos, and then make a separate Halloween one, which is the most obvious thing to do. But I think trying to figure out this way just might be a little bit more fun and interesting. So then the other thing that I want to do is, because one journal probably isn't going to be enough for 2 months, I'm also going to do a journal with the binding. Now, I know most of you don't have binding machines to make a bound, spiral bound. I guess that's how you say it. Yeah. To make a spiral bound journal. But this is, you could also do this if you had a 3-ring binder. You could make a small one if you had like an old Filofax binder or one of those planner binders, you know. So in the interest of being able to journal as much as I can possibly fit in my favorite months of the year, I thought it would just be fun to create a few different kinds of ways of being able to do journal with me videos. So that's what we're going to do. So some of the papers that I have, I'm going to make specifically used for a spiral bound, ooh, say that 5 times fast, spiral bound journal. And then we're going to do this. So that's my very long-winded way of getting you caught up and letting you know what's going on and what my plan is. I'm really excited to try it. And I think it'll just be a really interesting way of incorporating all of the fun things that we like to do in our journals over the coming weeks and months. And then it will be Halloween themed, it will be autumn themed, but it won't necessarily have to be specifically for or about Halloween and autumn, for those of you that are not as big of fans as I am, because I wanted to make this applicable to all seasons, in the sense that for those of you that are really big Christmas fans, these things could apply to you as well. So if you're kind of thinking, well, I'm not into Halloween, Christmas is my jam, then maybe it would be an interesting idea for you guys to think about making journals that sort of start after Halloween ends, and you would have papers that were sort of autumnish, that would allow you to have that anticipation and that build up through Thanksgiving, for my American friends, up into Christmas. Do you know what I mean? Because the anticipation of the holiday and the anticipation of our favorite times of the year and all the things that we do and enjoy building up to that time is just as fun as the time, in my opinion, right? So I think this will be a fun experiment to try, because it will be applicable. And again, for those of you that are watching this video later and maybe you like that very, very, very beginning of spring, sort of, well, depending on where you live, and not here, let me tell you, spring doesn't show up in February, but for those of you that maybe really love the anticipation of the days getting longer, and February shows up and it's about snowdrops poking through the snow, and you have that first smell of spring, and robins are back, and so you could do sort of the same sort of idea, that we could figure out a way to create a journal that incorporates more than one season, but the season that you start with isn't the season that you end up with at the back of the journal. So let's give it a shot. Let's see where we get. So I'm going to leave it there because I could chat with you guys forever and just blah, 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 blah. But let's get this puppy wrapped up and I can start editing. And so part 1, here we go. This is about showing you, let me see, do I have them, where do I have here? I'll just give you a quick little preview here. We have Hello Autumn. So this was the paper pack that I got from Amazon, from Cabella. It's gorgeous. So we go through that, and then we go through the painting of the paper, and yeah, so that's it. So, zip, without further ado, let's get on to the rest of the video. Thanks for watching, everybody. I got this Cabella package, or selection of paper from Amazon, and I have to say, Cabella never fails. I absolutely adore the quality of this paper. Everything about it always just really makes me very happy. So I've been through this pad a little bit already, trying to figure out what I'm going to use for a cover for the journal that I want to do. So I'm gonna do, like I said, the combination Halloween and autumn. And so, but I thought it would be fun to do a quick flip through for you of the papers that are in this, because I think they're absolutely gorgeous. And I love, love, love that they have the pattern on both sides when it's such nice quality paper, right? So we've got this. Actually, we'll just do them. I'll do them this way, and then we'll flip them over. I love the texture of this paper. It reminds me a little bit of watercolor paper. So this one I already cut the bottom off, and I was sort of trying to imagine what the cover would be like. Because I was looking at these papers and I was like, okay, which one of these do I want to use in which journal? And why? I love this. This is beautiful. This doesn't even really have to be for autumn, but the colors are just obviously amazing autumn colors. Yeah, it's just beautiful paper. I forget what I paid Canadian. I think it was $30. I think. Oh, and then of course then there's a sheet of stickers that you get. That's fun. So, okay, so now let's do the other side. I love this. I think this is absolutely beautiful. I have to say, in this pack, there really isn't anything I'm not super jazzed about. I love gingham, so that's right up my alley. How cute is that? With all the vegetables. This is stunning. I love this. Some more tags. Or is there, no, that's on the other side there. And then this one is just gorgeous. So I will be using all of these, no problem, in both of the journals. And since I've opened this, I sort of changed my mind, as you do, about what I was sort of anticipating. Where's the other one? I thought I would like the ones that were a little bit more neutral, the black and white, for the cover. Now this is great for autumn, but it's not very Halloweenish. So then I thought this one, typical me, can't make up my mind, because this is last year's Halloween journal that I'm gonna emulate. And so I was sort of playing around. This I cut to 10 inches, which normally 7 by 10 roughly is what I really like to work with. But when I dug this out from last year, I was like, oh, I didn't cut these papers down. So then I went back to this one, and I thought that might make a fun cover. So I'm going to end this part of it here, and we're going to start in on using the gesso and the paint and see where we get. So I'll be right back. Okie dokie, so, as I said before, I'm filming these out of order. So I'm sorry if it sounds a little, you're like, what? Where, who, what, how, and why? But anyways, so I just did I was going through this selection of paper. So I've pretty much decided now that I am going to use this as the cover. But I have some other paper here that I'm not super duper thrilled about. And I've talked in other videos about things that I'd like to try and do with paper that I'm not crazy about, but I still would like to use in the journal, right? So we've all bought these scrapbook packs where you're like, yeah, I like the majority of what's in there, but I'm not super crazy about 100% of it, right? So I pulled out these pages, and what we're going to play around with at this point is I'm going to take one page and we're going to put black gesso over top very lightly and see what we get. We're going to do regular gesso and see what we get. And then I thought it would be fun to take this metallic, just cheap folk art acrylic paint and paint over top of one of these scrapbook pages and just sort of see what we get. Because my journal is more of a scrapbook journal, not an art journal, right? So I'm not worried about mediums and can I write with a certain pen over a certain kind of medium or paint. I'm just going to be gluing stuff in it. So I just have to decide. Oh, and the other thing is we're going to glue a tablecloth. We're going to glue a napkin over top of a piece of paper. So what I think we're going to do to get us through the next few months, I'm going to make a journal that is a folded signature journal. Like this is the one from last year, which I can't even begin to tell you how happy this makes me that it got so chunky. This has a lot of happy mail in it that I got from my pen pals. I decided last year during October that I was going to do a page a day and put it on Instagram. I probably won't do that this year. I'll put some of it on Instagram, but I'm not going to do a dedicated page a day thing because Instagram doesn't show it to anybody. So I'd much rather work and make a journal here with you guys on YouTube because you have a better chance of seeing what's going on, right? So this was a one signature journal, which I really stretched it. But I think I'll also do a spiral bound journal as well. Something like this, right? That I can have some fun with and we can do some different techniques with it as well. So what this means is that this paper, hang on, I'll show you again. The Cabella Paper is just, in my opinion, some of the most beautifully textured scrapbook paper out there. I just love it. I can't say enough nice things about it. But what it means is that I can use all of this in a spiral bound journal, but I can't use all of this in a signature journal because it just gets crazy. So let's decide. I think what will be fun to do is this is pretty neutral already. So let's do the white gesso on top of this because I don't really need to cover a lot of this up. I don't mind this print. I'm just not super duper jazzed about it. Then we'll do, because I don't mind the stripes, I think we'll do the pumpkins. That's kind of fun. So we'll do the pumpkins on that paper. Okay, so black, this is just everyday black acrylic, gesso. I don't think there's anything on here that you guys need to know that you probably don't already know. So Give it a little shake. And oh my goodness. I need to eat more Wheaties. I can't get this open. Okay, there we go. I did eat a lot of Wheaties as a kid. If you met me and you knew how tall I was, you would find this extremely entertaining. Because we're going to say for argument's sake that I'm 5 foot tall. I'm not really, but let's just pretend I am. And so when I was a kid, I loved to play basketball. And actually, surprise, surprise, I was actually pretty good at it. And I was a very good point guard because I was so short. But I believed the hype as a kid, and I really did think if I ate my Wheaties, it would make me a better basketball player. One of those life lessons, you know. Okay, so let's just see what we get. It's covering a lot, as you can see, a lot thicker than I anticipated. Well, in the name of experimentation, let's just go like this and see what happens. I'm also quite curious how this is going to feel when it dries, meaning the paper. Like, this will have a very matte, which is exactly what I wanted, because you guys know I'm not into gloss of any kind. I'm not too particular about the edges. And that is already, whoops, feeling like it's drying quite quickly. So, again, in the interest of not overthinking this, I'm just going to let this dry. Okay, so let's let that dry, and while we work on this one, and I think I'm just going to pour a little bit of this in the middle here. And see where we get, oh, right away. Not much. Not much, wow. Hang on, maybe I didn't shake it hard enough. I have to admit, that's not what I was expecting. I don't even know why I bought this. Let's see if I pour a little bit more here. I was trying to think, when I was looking at my paints, I was like, oh, that's really translucent, and that's not, I mean, certainly interesting, but that's not going to cover what I want to cover. The whole point is that I'm not crazy about this paper and I don't want to see it. Huh. Interesting. Interesting. Just trying to think if I have any other silver or anyways, okay, plan B, everybody. I'm gonna set this aside in the interest of just continuing on, but I will come back to that. Okay, so now we're going to do the white acrylic gesso here. So yes, when I was a kid, I had two ambitions when I was about 13. I was either going to be a child psychiatrist, because I really didn't enjoy being a child for 1,000 reasons, and I thought it would be kind of fun to help kids with their problems. Or if that didn't pan out, which there was a really good chance it wasn't going to, because I really wasn't technically book smart, as they say, I thought maybe I could be the first woman coach in the NBA. I had some big ideas. Okay, so let's pour a little bit of that in here. It's funny to think back, you know, these things that you, on one hand, you know, the naivety is so apparent, but on the other hand, the fearlessness is admirable, right? See, I know this. I'm gonna actually really. This I can already tell I'm really gonna like. Because like I said, I don't mind the print, the pattern of the crystals. It's just, what's the word? Modern? I don't know if that's what it is about it that bothers me. So this is exactly what I expected from this gesso. Sort of this nice translucent coverage. Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's fun. Stop playing with it, Lisa. Stop playing with it. Let it dry. Impatient am I. Okay, now I'm just going to move some stuff out of the way, and then we're going to do the napkin. Oh no, wait, I got one more. Sorry. The second one that we did, I still have to cover this with something. I don't know if I want to cover it with the black gesso again. I think in the interest of experimenting, I'm going to go and see what acrylic paint I have and paint it with something, and then we can compare, you know, how the papers feel and what they look like after they dry. So just give me a second, and I'm going to go and dig out some gray acrylic paint, and I'll be right back. Okay, this I think, let's try this for fun. So I'm just going to pour this in here where the white gesso was. That really doesn't want to come out. Okay. Let's try this again. There we go. Now we're cooking with gas. Yeah, that's what I wanted. So, you know, when it comes to painting over scrapbook paper, I guess the question is, how much do you really dislike it and how much are you trying to hide? You know, if you don't mind it and it's not gonna bother you every time you look at it, which is, I think, just what happened with me in the past. I don't know. I just thought I could make myself and like it. I don't know why I would even do that to myself, but or do you want to cover it right over and have the fun, interesting texture of painted paper? Which I really do think is quite fun. So I have to be honest and say that when it comes to this, I really want to cover it up. I really want to paint over it. For the same reason, I guess, the other sort of white paper that had the sort of the crystals on it, it's just not my jam. Aesthetically, it's just not what I'm into. I don't mind elements of it coming through, but the print isn't for me. And then you might ask yourself, Lisa, or you might ask me, Lisa, why would you paint over paper? Maybe you should just go out and buy gray paper. Well, that's a valid question. I suppose the answer is, if you don't have gray paper, but you have gray paint, and just because it's fun. That's all. Just because it's fun. Just because you feel like indulging your inner child and you're like, hey, I'm going to paint some paper today. Yeah. So this is interesting in the sense that I can see some of the textures coming through with the lines. but not the print itself. I have to say, I'm quite like this. I mean, the other thing to remember is you're going to be journaling or gluing or covering it up. It doesn't have to be anything necessarily other than just pleasing to your eye, right? But it's kind of like when you have a new apartment or a new house, or you move into a new space and you sort of obsess about cleaning every corner or patching up every little hole or getting your paint just perfect. And then later you realize you got all the furniture in the apartment and you got things up on the wall. You're never going to notice all those little imperfections or little things that make you crazy when you first moved in, because it's covered up with other stuff. And that's what I feel about this. You know, I could sit here and agonize over what's showing and what's not showing. But truth be told, once I get this in a journal and I start messing around with it, half of these things that are making me a little bit annoyed right now are not going to matter later. All right. I really like the texture of that as well. I'm hoping that the camera sort of, yeah, you can see the brush strokes and the... Well, that's quite easy, isn't it? So if you have paper you don't like, you just paint over that and just start fresh. Okay, so I'm going to put this away. I'm going to tidy up a little bit here. And then we're going to do the napkin. And see what we can do with that. So let me just set this down here. And just before I switch gears, let's just have a look at this. So this was the white gesso. And I think what I'll do is, it's kind of dry, but the paper itself still feels a little bit damp. So what we're going to do real quick is I'm just going to do another really quick coat. I'm just going to sort of pour some in the middle here. And we'll just go over it again and then really let that dry. You know, there's something to be said for doing sort of little things like this when you don't really know what what you're doing, because then you're not getting attached to an outcome. And there's something very liberating and freeing about that. You know, when you're just doing things and you're like, well, I don't really know what's going to happen, and maybe I'm going to like it and maybe I'm not. But I really like the idea that when you don't really know how it's going to turn out, you really free up that space in your brain that allows things to just free flow, and you can make up your mind later, or you're not hung up by expectations of outcome, right? I get trapped in that all the time. I think I know how I think something should look or how it's going to look, and then when it doesn't look that way, I'm all upset and I'm annoyed with myself and blah, blah, blah. But when you're doing something like this and you're just like, well, let's just see what happens. And if I don't like it, then I don't have to use it. And if I do like it, excellent, bonus. Right? Okay, yeah, I'm glad we put the second coat on that. You can still sort of see it shine through a little bit, or show through. Fun. I really like the feel of painted paper. I don't know what it is about this texture, but it really lights me up. Okay, let's tidy up. I'll put all this stuff away, and then we're going to do the napkin. Okay, so I've got these two napkins. I got these at the dollar store, at Dollarama here in Canada. So this one, let's do, I have this piece of paper twice. Now, I was just thinking, do I want to do one? Anyways, let's start by working with the side that's got the stripe on it. So we want to separate. Now, I have to be really honest. I've watched people do this a million times. I have not really done this. You would think that this would be something that I would have done a lot because yeah, it's fun, but I have not. Yeah, I do like the stripes like that. And then we would fold it and put it in the journal like that. Okay, so I got my Mod Podge here. Lots of people just use a regular Elmer's glue, any kind of white glue, any kind of cheap glue. Like I wouldn't use the most expensive, like the Super Aleene's, anything that's, you know, kind of pricey. Oh yes, I was gonna say, have I not opened this? Yes, I've opened this. So I'm gonna pour a little bit in here because I do want to water this down. Oops, a tiny bit. The one time I did try it, it was a disaster. And I think it was because my glue was too thick. Like I was asking a lot of the tissue paper. You know what I mean? Like, come on, get on the thick glue. And it's like, no, it's too thick. So another fat brush. And then I'm just going to add just a little bit of water here. I think it would be better at this point to have it a little bit too watery than not. Oh, you can't see what I'm doing. You're like, hey, Lisa, it helps if it's on the camera. Sorry. Okay. So let's... spread that nice and thin there. Sorry. I make sure I'm here where I'm supposed to be. And the one thing I should have had that I don't have is a straight ruler handy for when I put this on, like to help keep it smooth, but let's see. Now, I'm not too, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to, just because it's such a big piece, let's try and, it's a little bit too big for the paper, so I don't really, I'm aiming to use most of it, but cut off the border. Oh, this is not doing too bad. Might be a little bit wrinkly, but I don't mind that because I don't mind having that little bit of texture. Oh, again, you're like, for the love of... for the love of Halloween. There we go. Oh no, here we go. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit out of practice, apparently. I took too much time away making journals. Oh, this. Look at that. Look at that. Easy peasy. I didn't even need the ruler. Now, I'll just flip this. So here's the thing. Now the next question is, the couple of the gals that I watched, isn't that funny? It doesn't want to stick down there, and yet we really coated that with a lot of glue. The other gal, she went over top of it. So in the interest of experimenting, oh yeah, that's great. That's really fun. Okay, let's go over top of it. A little bit gently. Yeah. It's amazing what some people can do with napkins in their art journals. The way that they cut them out and use just specific parts and part of the design of it. It's just like anything else, it's just practice. The more you do it, and you know what the limitations are, of course, of the napkin, and you learn to glue or not to glue and how much glue. Oops, see that starting? I think I'm tearing that. I am. Oops. I do tend to be a little heavy-handed with these things. So now let's do this side, and then we will let this dry. Then we'll check back in with the papers that we did the paint and the gesso on and see how they're drying. And then once all of this stuff is fully dried and I hammer out a few other details, yeah, then we'll get right into the journal. I'll put that video up next. And I just have to figure out how I want to work all the paper. I have to say, I really like this texture that's forming. There's a little bit of an air pocket underneath there. And when I smoosh it down with the paint or the glue and the brush, I'm getting these really, really lovely textured lines. Now, if you wanted it smooth, this would this would not be what you wanted. But I really like there. Yeah, that's great. I'm very happy with how this is turning out. Easier than I thought. Now I can see some bubbles here. Whoops. So yeah, here I definitely was a little heavy-handed. You can see where I've ripped it there. That's all right. Okay, so what I think we'll do just before we end today's time together, I'm gonna try, this won't, so what let's see, if I put that right near the edge, so that would be kind of fun in the journal, right? To have that border there. Okay, so let's do that. Let's do this one real quick. And we'll take the back off of here again. Boy, these really separate easily. I guess maybe that's the difference between the dollar store napkins and some of the more expensive fancy schmancy ones. Some of the 3-ply ones, it's really hard to get the backing off. Okay, that's gonna fit nicely. Okay, so I'm gonna need a little tiny bit more. Whoa! Speaking of heavy-handed, oh well. Now, a little tiny bit of water here. Once again. I have some really fun Halloween napkins tucked away somewhere. I think I'll dig some of those out and do that. Do the same with these as these. That'll be fun. Because, you know, I don't know about you, but I get carried away sometimes with the napkins when you're out. I'm out shopping and I'm like, oh, those are so pretty and they're only $3 on sale, and you know, you come home and you realize you bought 500 worth of seasonal napkins and you're not anticipating 500 guests. And so yeah, then I end up with all of these napkins, and you'd think I'd learned my lesson, but I don't. It's the same thing every Halloween, especially. I go out and Michael's has these napkins, and especially if it's buy one pack, get another pack, and then I send a few to pen pals and put them in Happy Mail, and then I still have you know, 480 left at home. So this is a great way to use up some of that stuff. Because then you think, oh, I need new napkins this year. I can't possibly use the napkins from last year. All right, let me make sure that's there. Okay, so again, I'm gonna roll this back a little bit so I don't have a ton of it flailing around at the top. And I am gonna just kind of place that gently there so it's a little bit lined up. It doesn't have to be perfect. See, I was thinking a ruler might not be the best idea, but I was sort of thinking if I had a ruler, sort of like, I got my chair ruler here just so I could sort of smush it down a little bit as we go. I suppose the other nice thing too about doing this kind of thing on paper that has a pattern, if you do make a mistake and you rip it or it tears a little bit, it's concealed a little bit, right? It's not the end of the world. Yeah, that's going to be fun too. You know what's interesting is that I absolutely love, as you know, Halloween, but and autumn, but man, I am not a fan of orange. Yeah, I don't know if ironic is the right word, but if I had a least favorite color, it's orange. And that says a lot about a lot of things. Because they say that, I'm just going to see if I can no, I'm just going to cut it. They say that the colors that you like the least are the colors and the properties of those colors that you need the most. Which again, I find very interesting. And so I have done some research into a lot of this. I'm a big fan of color therapy, what color can do for us psychologically, mentally, emotionally. And so I have looked into why I might have an aversion to orange. And what is very interesting as well is that my husband, his favorite color is orange. He loves orange. And it's one of the we are opposites on many levels, on many things. As couples, you you eventually find out that you are. But it's one of those really interesting sort of things that make you go, when you're like, oh, so I really have very little tolerance for orange, and yet if he would paint his office orange if he had the energy. You know what I mean? Like, he likes to wear orange clothing, he likes to wear orange socks, he loves orange. And meanwhile, I'm just like, ugh. So yeah, it's just one of those things where you're like, okay, so why do I have this aversion to this color? And, you know, there's orange is a color that is associated with many emotions, and there is a comfort component to orange, but it's just not something that speaks to me. I mean, I remember as a kid, if I would get a new box of crayons or some pencil crayons, I would almost immediately take out the orange ones and just get rid of them because I knew I would never use them. I would try and just make do with yellow and red for doing autumn coloring. So it's something that I've come by very honestly, in the sense that just, I was like, maybe I was killed in a pumpkin patch in a former life or something like that. You know, like maybe I was a pumpkin merchant and I was murdered by bandits. I don't know. But I will say this about orange. Since I've been doing some reading and learning about our aversions to certain colors and the emotions, because colors evoke a lot of emotion, right? And so since I've been learning about this, I have to admit that I have been trying to make more of an effort to incorporate orange in small ways in my life, right? So I might buy orange socks. And then that way I'm wearing them and I can sort of see them, but it's not in my face. You know, I bought orange Post-it notes. When I have to buy new Post-it notes, I usually buy orange ones just to have a little bit of orange in my life. I know it sounds a little bit silly, but there you have it. So it is ironic that my favorite time of the year is full of orange. So I really do need to examine as well what that means. Okay, look at that. That looks great. It's a little more wet than the other one. I kind of got yapping away about orange. And probably should have stopped beforehand. But that's okay. That's okay. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to say goodbye. I'm going to leave this here, and then here, meaning we'll stop, and then I'll come back and show you what the paper looks like, and how it feels, and how it sounds, before I say goodbye for good. So, I'll be right back. Here's a quick little PS. I just found one of these napkins, like I was talking about, and I thought it would just be fun if I did a quick little fast forward. I've just got some regular cardstock here. This doesn't quite fit, of course, because it's not the right size. And I've got these ones here, and it looks like they're a little bit even bigger. But I'm just thinking, if I cut, I might be able to decoupage these on here and just barely get them to fit. Okay, let me just see what I can do here. So let's cut this. So I'm gonna stop talking and we'll just fast forward it so you can see. Okay, everything is dried, and so we're ready for the big reveal. This was the purple paper. Wait a minute. I still have some left in this. This was the one that kind of had these tags in it. Not kinda, did. This was the black gesso. So you can see the paper has curled a little bit, which is to be expected. I really like how this feels. I have to say, I really like how this feels. It's very smooth. Yeah, a little bit of the pattern peeked through as it dried. As you can see, it's not quite as just... So in hindsight, if I was going to do this again, I might water down the gesso a tiny, tiny little bit. Or just use less or use a smaller brush. But I am not unhappy with this at all. I think this is going to be great. We'll just fold it like that. And yeah, what I have been thinking about while these were drying, what we might do is stamp some of these backs. I'm either torn between doing another coat of paint and stamping. So I just need to think about that for a little bit. So that's the purple, or sorry, that's the black gesso. It's very matte, and I really like that. So that's that one. Now this is the white gesso, and you can still see a little bit of that crystal pattern underneath. And this has more, I'm sure this is because this is a different type of gesso. This definitely does have a little bit more of a texture to it and a little bit of a raised, rough feeling. But yeah, I'm not unhappy with that at all. I like how you can see a tiny little bit of the pattern through it. Anyhow, okay, so that's that one. Now here's the one that we did with the gray paint. And again, I'm really liking, I like how this feels. It's very matte. This is smooth. It's smoother than the white, for sure. So, I mean, really, how easy is that? If you've got some scrapbook paper you don't like, and you've got some paint, then have at it. You know, just paint over it. You could, I'm thinking that this might be fun to collage over as well. Like this is just a nice base. And this is the thing, right? Your possibilities truly are really endless when it comes to these things. But you're still able to use really, it's good quality paper. It's nice and thick. It's not as thick as the Cabella paper, but it's still great for working in a journal. Now let's have a look at, this was the first napkin that we did. It feels great. The texture on this is absolutely fantastic. I love, it feels so good. So eventually I will just trim all this off here. Yeah, we still have to figure out what I might do with the bag. You know, the other thing I thought about doing too was stitching something on, and then it might be kind of fun to have the raised stitching lines around the sides. That's a possibility. Anyhow, focus. So this, I'm really thrilled with how this turned out, and I don't mind the stripes so much because it totally looks like it fits in with the pumpkins. So that's great. And then we've got this one's still, I think I used way too much glue. This one will definitely have to sit overnight. I dried this with my heat gun, so it's dry to the touch. And again, I've got that really fantastic texture, but this paper really is quite wet. So this will sit out. I'll put something heavy on it, and then it'll sit overnight. But yeah, that's gonna be really nice in the autumn portion of the journal. And then lastly, we've got this here that I did with the little PS. This was just on the regular cardstock. This I also dried with my heat gun, and it feels fantastic, but this paper is really quite damp. So I will put something heavy, a heavy book on top of this, and let this dry overnight before I do anything with it. But yeah, so that's it, everybody. That's it for part 1 of the autumn/Halloween journal making videos. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that it will inspire you to do the same and to get out some napkins and to get out some paper that you don't like, and to play around with whatever mediums you have to cover it up and give yourself a really interesting texture, blank slate, whatever you want to call it, to work with. So yeah, until the next video, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate you guys spending some time with me. You know what I always say, speak kindly to yourselves, especially in the process, especially when you think that maybe you're making a mistake or you didn't do it right. I know that I have to correct myself all the time. all the time, and remind myself that It's not a mistake, it's part of the process. So, do speak kindly to yourself. Enjoy the process in your journal. And until next time, happy journaling, and I'll talk to everybody soon. Mwah! See you later.